Business combinations. Okay, we've got a lot of different combinations, and you might think, well, I saw some of these in FAR, and yes, you did. We hinted at a lot of these. We go more in detail here, but nothing crazy. Again, much more likely to be a sim with these, where you have to read an example in an exhibit and detail, is this a circular combination or diagonal? And at the end, I have a recap slide where I give all of the types of combinations and then the example of company I give. We'll start off first with a circular combination. Now, this is when two companies with different businesses come together under a single centralized management. So PepsiCo, they've got drinks and snacks, not to get into the history of it, but they've got Frito-Lay and they've got all these snack companies that have come under the same umbrella, and they use economies of scale, right? So maybe there's a great snack, but they want to pair up with a drink company which knows how to mass produce products and get them into grocery stores, and they're pretty similar. I mean, drinks and snacks are obviously one's liquid and one's solid, but they are consumed similarly, and they got you'll find them in both the same stores. You're not going to probably sell TVs and beach towels. That's a little different. So yeah, these two companies can reduce costs by using the same distribution channels. Perfect. That is a circular combination. Now, under a diagonal combination, this is also known as vertical integration. And this is what Apple did with their processing chips. Well, in the past, Apple has had to buy chips from other companies, Intel, Dell, right? So Apple now has purchased as well as developed chip manufacturing capabilities to facilitate its own phone production, and for their computers, they can make their own chips. As of right now, it's the M1 chip, and they're producing those themselves. So now they don't have to rely on other companies and pay premiums for that. They can also now, and Apple is very much a company that prides itself in quality in every step along the way. They can oversee their own quality, because before, maybe they didn't like the way Intel was making the chips and they didn't view them as high quality. Well, they can't really command Intel and tell them what to do. So now that they have their own ability to manufacture chips, they can oversee their own quality in-house. That is a diagonal combination or a vertical integration, also known as there. Next, we have a merger, such as Exxon and Mobil merging. And if you drive a car and you see a gas station called Exxon Mobil, then you probably know that they did merge. All right, so this is when Company A, Company B combined to form Company C. It's a completely new entity. It's the name merger, but here is it's a completely new entity. All the stock of the first two companies is eliminated and replaced with the stock in the new one. Generally, existing shareholders of Company A and B will get the new stock. I mean, you're not SOL if you own these and then they merge. No, you're probably gonna get some stock, so don't worry there. Mergers can be a good thing. They've proven to be a bad thing in the past, but we're not here to get into that. What are we here for? We're here to get a little bit more into other types of business combinations. Let's start with acquisition. Well, this would be when T-Mobile bought Sprint, and could be much further in the future, and you're like, well, that was decades ago. I'll probably update these videos by the time we get there, but this was relatively recent as of the recording here. This business combination does not result in a new company. Generally, it consists of one larger company acquiring a smaller company. The smaller company may continue to operate while being owned by the larger, or it may be dissolved and cease to exist. So now we don't have Sprint anymore. It's slowly being phased out. You are now a T-Mobile customer, and that's an acquisition. We've got plenty of examples of those in the real world. Now, next up, we have a tender offer, which could be a hostile takeover. It doesn't have to be a hostile takeover, but a hostile takeover is an example of a tender offer, and get into what that is a little bit. Nothing too important, but just if you're familiar with what that is. So this is it's a public offer made by a person, business, investment firm. They want to acquire a given amount of a particular security. Now, you could be targeting, let's say, a struggling food chain, right? Maybe you think you can turn them around, so you make them a tender offer. The terms of these, right, they come from the fact, the term tender, comes from the fact they're inviting existing shareholders to tender or sell their shares to them. So it's a conditional offer to buy. It's a business transaction's an offer that's made directly to the shareholders. The public offer made by an activist investor. So that's where right? We could have someone who runs a hedge fund and really thinks that, let's say Wendy's was its own company. I know it's owned by a parent company, but let's say Wendy's was its own company and it's not doing well. And an activist investor is someone who likes to buy, let's say 20% of a company, 30% of the company, and start to guide that company and what it does. You take an active role in that company. So it could be an individual business that wants existing shareholder shares, right? Now, a hostile takeover is when you kind of force your way in and you try to eat up as many shares as possible. So you kind of have the say of the land and determine what the company does. However, it could be a very peaceful tender offer. It doesn't have to be a hostile takeover. Just an example of what that could be and what that could entail. All right. So what's the purpose here? They're proposed in the hopes that the hopeful would-be acquirer can accumulate enough stock to get a major presence in that company and or possibly completely take over the board of directors. That's what we are going with here. And there were no examples that were general enough that a whole audience here would be familiar with. So I figured I just wouldn't give an example. Next, we have the purchase of assets, such as Disney buying Fox's intellectual property, movies, and content. You are a fan of Marvel. I'm sure you're quite happy that they got all of that content back under the same roof. Also have that iconic in the Simpsons movie where they make that joke about Disney, and now Disney owns the joke against themselves. That's a fun time. It's an absolute fun time. So this is not a stock purchase. There's no merging between the companies. There's no stock trading hands, but it's just one company buying part of company B. Now it's really just the assets of that company. Disney bought Fox's intellectual property and movies and everything there. So Fox could have been dissolved. I mean, they, not to get into the specifics of it, but they bought Fox's more entertainment brand. I'm not sure. I didn't really look into it too much. It's not important if they actually bought a part of Fox, a subsidiary of Fox, or if they just said, "Hey, I want to buy some of your content," just like it was inventory. Doesn't matter. They are just buying part of that company, what that company owns. Like if you own a vacation house, if I offer to buy your vacation house and you sell it to me, it's a purchase of assets, right? That's what we've got here. Now we have business divestitures. This is opposite of combinations. This is when you are getting rid of or divesting yourself of part of your own company. Why would you do this? Why would you sell off part of your own company? There are various reasons, which we will, of course, get into. Now, you have a straight sell-off, such as, and I don't know if any of you knew this or many of you knew this, but McDonald's did own Chipotle, or not the whole company, but they had a good chunk of ownership of Chipotle at one time. I did hear it was because Chipotle was selling alcohol and McDonald's didn't want to be associated with it. Also heard it's because they just didn't fit in line or they wanted to focus on more of their core business. There's many reasons why this could have been the case, but McDonald's no longer owns a good chunk of Chipotle. I mean, unless they do, but not publicly available information. So this, you sell off part of your company, and by selling off a segment or component of a company that's not related to the core operations. Now, McDonald's, as you may or may not be aware from if anyone's seen The Founder, the movie, they're much more of a real estate company, right? They own the land under the building. They get franchisees who run the McDonald's. And maybe Chipotle was just too different of a business model from that. That could be the reason. So, not related to its core operations, the main company can now focus on the profitability of what it does best without any distractions. There are many specific reasons in real life why the main company is sold off the subsidiary. The most common factor, the company gets too involved in unrelated businesses. It can be a distractor, or the subsidiary can lack synergy with the core business. There's just a lot of confrontation between the management of both. So many reasons why this could happen. Not really too important to be familiar with that, but all good. All good. Next, we have a spin-off. Now, eBay did own PayPal at one point. However, they spun it off into its own company. And through the spin-off, a new independent company is created, which is PayPal. By separating a subsidiary from a parent company, there are two means of completing this transaction. For one, the new entity stock can be distributed as a stock dividend to existing shareholders. So the existing shareholders of eBay would now own PayPal as well, but it's a separate company. Or secondly, the parent can offer shareholders stock in the new company in exchange for stock in the parent company. So eBay could have said, hey, I'll give you PayPal stock in exchange for your eBay stock. Give that back to me. I'm not sure how that went down. Again, not important, not a concern for us taking the exam. The reason for spinoff is usually when a certain business unit of the parent is less profitable. So they kind of give it room to breathe. But PayPal is suffocating under the umbrella of bureaucracy and eBay and how many rules they have to follow. So if they say, "Hey, we'll create you and make you your own company," then it's different from the parent's core business, and it's expected it might do better on its own. We're just still going with these, aren't we? We're just drilling through, having a good time. Oh man, oh man. Well, just to recap again, right? This is going to primarily be simulation related. We're not really going to have probably multiple choice. I mean, you could see them, but more commonly, this would be simulations, and they'll give you examples of a business, and you'll have to know, okay, is it equity carve out, a merger? What happened here? Now, this is similar to a spinoff or split off, super similar. And I'll go over the differences, but just to read first. This occurs when an entity makes its subsidiary public through an IPO, which creates a new company. And how is it different from a spinoff? Well, no cash is collected by the parent company. As a result, however, the sale of the shares of the new entity generates cash for the parent, and also usually the parent has controlling interest in the new entity. All right, so what happens here is if, let's say, eBay and PayPal decided to do an equity carve out instead of a spinoff, they would have just said, hey, we're creating a new company. Here we're selling off shares of PayPal to the general market, right? So this is generating cash for the parent, and maybe the parent still has controlling interest in this entity. The reason for this equity carve out is quite similar to the spinoff. Give the subsidiary new room to breathe, and it will grow, not having to report as a component of the parent company. I mean, in terms of how businesses work, yeah, I mean, if you're having to report to 15 different managers because you're owned by another company, that can get exhausting, and it might make more sense to create a new type of entity there. That is going to be our equity carve out. Now, as promised, I have a nice little recap for you here on our combinations and divestitures. These are all the types that we might need to know for the exam. It doesn't seem so bad now that I just have them broken out here, right? We don't have a full description of everything here. Just examples of what we talked about under each. Take note of it, get familiar with it, memorize. I really do think an example of each is nice to know. So, a merger, just like Exxon and Mobil, and what happened there? Well, a completely new company was made. So if description on the exam says, a new company's made, okay, well, it sounds much like what's going on here. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.exemplify, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.exemplify and let's achieve your exam success together.